The power of vulnerability is a power that is often taken for granted, often avoided, because our understanding of what vulnerable means is really layered in fear. It's layered in the idea that other people have the ability to affect us in a negative way and take advantage of us. But the reality is, vulnerability is by far one of the most important elements, the most important characteristics, one of the most powerful powers that you can actually utilize when it comes to leading yourself and leading all aspects of who you are through the path of personal fulfillment, the path of tapping into your divinity, the path of truly understanding who you are and fulfilling your purpose. So, as we talk about the power and the significance of vulnerability, I want it to be applied in the context of leadership, not just in terms of leading others, because that is a powerful byproduct, but in terms of leading yourself, leading situations, leading advancements in opportunities, leading in ultimately creating the life that you desire. And when you think about leadership, I want you to understand that you are a leader. You are a leader in that you have different aspects of who you are that must come into alignment and agreement, must be in a state where everything is aligned and matching in frequency in order for you to productively create your desires, whether it be something that is small, momentary, or something that is big and very prominent in your whole life, right? Your legacy. So what I want you to do is think about the understandings of what does vulnerability look like to you? Because for many people, what it looks like is being extremely emotional, being highly sensitive, being very sensitive to the point where things that people say and do affect you in a way that doesn't produce, productivity. It doesn't create a sense of power for many of us. And that is because we've been given this false idea, this false definition, this false understanding of what vulnerability means. Just like being emotional, just like being sensitive. Oftentimes, these words come with negative connotations and meanings that don't support what they truly are about. They don't support you in manifesting and materializing that what you want and being your most authentic self. And so let's get into it. Vulnerability is really about being transparent. It's really about being open and honest. It's really about being in a state where you have so much faith in who you are and what you desire that you can be very transparent and honest, most importantly with yourself, but with others, and what exactly you feel and what you think needs to be done in order for you to get the desire, right? To obtain the objective, to accomplish the mission. And so you have to understand that vulnerability is a strength. It is a strength of being truly honest with people. And honesty is one of those things that many people have struggles with. Many people fail to take ownership of themselves, take responsibility, accountability. And so vulnerability is one of those things that allows you to recognize that the more transparent you are, the more insightful you can be, the more able you are to tap into that insight and that wisdom, the more honest you are to look at a certain situation, look at how you are matching up, how you are actually handling that situation, and then moving forward from the most possible objective viewpoint as possible, right? Not being attached to particular things and particular outcomes, but simply just moving forward, knowing that you have a mission, you have a thing that you wish to obtain and you wish to create. And there are infinite paths to creating it, right? And so a lot of times when we get caught up in wanting a particular thing, we often want it a particular way at a particular time, right? By a particular person. And oftentimes that doesn't leave room for the universe and for outside people who come in and out of our reality. It doesn't allow for them to be individuals. It doesn't allow for them to actually have their say and input based on who they are. So we have to be flexible and maneuver around that. And in terms of leadership, when it comes to leading other people, you most definitely have to consider the individuals involved in the gathering, right, of the group, the collective, right, the society, the culture, right, the family, the community that you have that has decided to move forward and create this thing, this desire, right, this result. So it's important for you to, when getting into leadership, it's really about sharing, right? Sharing a sense of who you are, sharing your journey to foster connection. So in terms of spiritual leadership of oneself, you must recognize all aspects of who you are: consciousness, conscious mind, subconscious mind, unconscious mind, the ego. And you, the true essence of who you are, is consciousness. Now, when you tap into that understanding that you are being driven to fulfill something based on your purpose, based on your understanding of what consciousness desires to create and experience, you have to share that insight with all the other aspects of who you are. You have to share that insight, that inspiration, that knowledge, right? The benefits, the ability that each and every one of all the aspects of who you are have in order to create the result. So consciousness has to communicate through the conscious mind, right? Because the conscious mind is constantly observing and analyzing everything that you experience. And then that is being stored based on the conclusions of the conscious mind, that is being stored in the subconscious mind as habits, as reflexes, as belief systems. And then it goes even deeper, depending on how the intensity of emotions involved, it goes even deeper into your unconscious. Okay. And then the ego has its role to play in basically wanting to protect you from harm, whether it be emotional, physical, right? Its job is to really protect you while you are here in this physical realm called Earth. But because the ego is often, take it for granted. It's often not looked at. It's often not observed. It's often looked at as the villain even. Then it often doesn't get the attention. The proper skills to manage it isn't maintained. It isn't accumulated. It isn't achieved. So anyway, you have to acknowledge that all these aspects of who you are need to be led by consciousness. And when you recognize that consciousness is the leader, that's who you truly are, then you understand that consciousness, by way of things like meditation, mindfulness, has to essentially share that spiritual journey with all aspects of who you are. So in terms of relating that or translating that into leading people, is no different, right? You represent consciousness. You represent the pure objective, the desire, the goal, the mission, the purpose. And you are then looking at each individual within that group, community, and saying, okay, this is the mission, this is the goal, this is what we are going to achieve, and this is what it means to achieve this. And then you're going to communicate that with each individual, taking into account that each individual has different skill sets. Just like your conscious mind has a different skill set, your subconscious mind has a different skill set, your unconscious and your ego. And so you're going to observe and look at each individual, consider their skill sets, consider their thoughts, opinions, expertise, right? Advice, and then take that with an understanding that we are here together collectively to create a situation that will foster a connection of we are on the same page, we are on the same mission, we have the same objective, we want the same things. That's basically having a deeper understanding and building a very deep connection with these characters in order to align them with you, right? With your desire. Now, the most important thing with that is creating a safe space. You have to create a safe space for all aspects of yourself, just like you have to create a safe space for all of the individuals in your community. You have to allow for, say, for example, your ego to be seen, to be the ego, to want to protect you, right? Even though protection, the intention behind that often looks like it is trying to prevent you from doing something. And many times it is because it is scared. So you have to acknowledge that fear and then communicate with the ego that, listen, I understand your point of view, where you're coming from, but by way of consciousness, we understand that there is nothing to fear. There is no fear of dying because your infinite beingness does not die. Your consciousness does not die. Though it can be debated, the ego can experience a death. So maybe that is what the ego is transmuting and communicating with you, the fear of its own death. But you have to understand that the ego is always temporary anyway. The ego is only serving a purpose here in this realm. So it's important to understand that as you go through this journey and you're communicating with all aspects of yourself or all characters or all archetypes of you, you can then understand the nature of where they're coming from, their perspective, their concerns, their fears, their desires, and their wants. And that will allow you to move forward in communicating with them because you have to allow for a safe space for them to be themselves. When you allow them to be themselves, then there isn't a sense of them feeling restricted, right? They're not confined to having to just simply be and not be heard, not be seen, right? But they know they're a part of the community. And so that obviously pertains to a group of individuals, a group of people. They have to be seen, recognized, and heard in order for them to be productive towards you achieving your goal, toward them helping you and supporting you to achieve your goal. The more you allow for the safe space of them to be themselves, for them to practice their talents, their skill sets, to be passionate, right? To be curious and adventurous, whatever it is that allows them to be fully fulfilled in the moment, you must allow for that space in order for them to support you at their most optimal level. Because if you are judging them, just like you may be judging your unconscious programs or your trauma or your ego, okay, and you may be ashamed of it and you may be pushing it aside, it will still result in weighing you down. It will still result in you being less productive. But if you learn to optimize all aspects, then you will be the most productive, meaning you will essentially create the result that you desire at a faster rate than if you do not allow for a safe space for these individuals to be themselves. So you have to balance out vulnerability with inner strength, because a lot of times vulnerability doesn't mean that you are just simply letting people, letting things, letting situations just happen without you taking a stance. You see, it's important that you must take a stance. It's important that you must have a purpose and that you're moving with that purpose. Because if you're not moving with that purpose and all these things are being thrown at you, all these experiences and feelings are being felt from within you, then you may feel paralyzed by these emotions, by these thoughts. But if you are dialed into a single focus of achieving a particular thing, then no matter what is being thrown at you, right, you are still allowing yourself to be strong toward the goal. This is where stoicism comes in handy, right? Those people who are stoics, they have a presence about them where they are quiet and focused. They are determined to achieve the thing that they desire, no matter what obstacles or challenges may come in their way. So you have to understand the importance of being vulnerable, being transparent, being honest, right? Having the ultimate faith in your ability to create that which you desire, and still being focused, being completely committed to that goal. That is where your job is, and that's how you come into actually mastering and balancing vulnerability and strength. But the thing is, just like creating the safe space, you also have to create trust, right? And you do that through honest communication. You do that through telling yourself, all right, this is what you know, this is what you don't know, this is what you think, and then moving forward with action, moving forward with some levels of faith and some levels of knowing. Because faith, remember, faith is about believing something, but you haven't experienced it yet. Whereas a knowing is based on an experience, is based on the wisdom that came from actually having experienced that thing. And there are going to be different ratios depending on what it is you want to achieve. Most times when we want to achieve something, it's because we haven't achieved it yet. So there's going to be some levels of faith that is going to outweigh the knowingness. But that's okay. You just use what you know to build up your confidence, to build up different aspects of yourself, to be confident in your ability to follow consciousness, right? Follow the leader and allow the leader to essentially prove to you that there is nothing that you cannot create. As a collective, there is nothing you cannot create when you are dialed in, you are aligned in all aspects of yourself and all aspects of the individuals in the group are focused on a single objective. So you have to recognize the importance of all these things, because vulnerability is the skill that really connects the leader with the group, with the collective. Okay? The leader within you is your consciousness. The collective is all the other aspects of who you are. And when you allow to recognize those aspects, it translates over into dealing with other people. Okay? So recognize as well the importance of demonstrating courage. Because again, when we talk about faith versus knowing, right? Your faith is something that requires more courage because, again, with faith, you haven't truly experienced it yet. You just believe it, right? You feel it. You have a nudge, an urge towards it. With knowing, you have experienced it and you know exactly what to do to create it again. So many times when we are creating something, it's because we haven't created it before. And so it requires a lot of courage to move forward in that, to move, especially when you are leading, to move forward because other aspects of who you are or other individuals are in fact looking to you. And so you have to hold a space of courageousness, right? Of faith that doesn't seem to be wavering. And it doesn't matter what happens, even in moments where things are not perfect, in moments where things are simply not going so well, but you are still seeing the ability and you're still recognizing that you're on the trajectory of that purpose, right? That desire. So you just simply allow, right, for the imperfections to come. You recognize them. You use all aspects of who you are or all individuals within the group, and you say, okay, let's adjust. Let's fine tune this. Let's make this work. But what you never do is you never stop. You simply keep moving forward. So recognize that imperfections are not signs that you're not good enough, that you're not, or you shouldn't stop. Okay. If anything, it's a sign that you can get better. It's a sign that there are just simply situational, right, moments where you just have to adjust and make things as close to perfect as possible. But truly, perfection, the idea of perfection is really focused in on continuing movement, continuing to move, right? When you stop moving, that's when there's a problem. But as long as you are continuing and you are focused and you are leading the collective toward that goal and you cease to stop, you don't cease to stop, then you will continue and eventually you will meet that goal. Just recognize the importance of being vulnerable. Be vulnerable with yourself. Allow yourself to see all aspects of who you are, the good, the bad, and the quote unquote ugly. Let it all be exposed to you. Because when it is exposed, then that's when you can deal with it. That's when you can heal it. That's when you can process it. And when you are able to reconcile and heal all aspects of who you are, then that translates over into being recognized amongst people in this universe as someone who has an understanding as to what it means to be a leader. And that's really who you are. Thank you so much. Feel free to go to drabundant.com, subscribe to my daily newsletter, and get access to this free ebook and so much more. Continue to join me on this journey. Peace and abundance always.